All right, let's try that again. Hello and welcome to the Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. I'm absolutely excited to have another opportunity to bring you another amazing guest. And we are moving along very quickly towards episode number 100. But right now, tonight's episode is number 93. And tonight, I have another amazing guest that I'm excited about bringing forth to you. I had the opportunity to meet this young lady in Washington, D.C. during the NAPSE conference this summer, and certainly, or fall, I think it was, and certainly looking forward to speaking with her tonight. My guest tonight is Mrs. Shante Knight. Shante Knight is a career educator who has served as an elementary and middle school teacher, award-winning principal, and central office administrator, as well as the Director of Curriculum and Instruction prior to joining the ASCD team in 2023 as their Director of Educator Leadership Development. She is a passionate and proven school culture, climate, and academic transformation strategist. Under her leadership, schools have made better than noteworthy gains in achievement and climate improvements and sustained improvement efforts. Prior to transitioning to corporate leadership, Mrs. Knight led and supported underperforming schools and helped them realize double-digit gains in student performance by fostering a climate of high achievement, helping to shape the conditions necessary for learning and building smart and positive relationships with staff, students, and community partners. A native Washingtonian and a product of public education, she has always been inspired by the progressive energy that surrounds school improvement efforts. Her own learning experience provided her with a deep appreciation for the challenges and obstacles that students in marginalized communities face. And with two boys of her own, her role as an industry leader is governed by her compass as a mother, as she works tirelessly to raise the instructional bar and ultimately student achievement by ensuring that every student benefits from a better than amazing learning experience. Seeing education as a gateway to a fulfilled life, her chief goal now is to empower, endear, and support career educators with tools they need to teach and lead happily. So you can see why I'm excited about having her on the show this evening. Mrs. Knight received her undergraduate degree from an HBCU, Bowie State University in Maryland, and her master's degree in education administration from Trinity College in Washington, D.C. She currently resides in Midlothian, Virginia, with her husband and their two boys. And at this time, I'd like to welcome to the Wright Experience, Mrs. Shante Knight. Welcome to the Wright Experience.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we're going to get right into the questions. If you'll start out just talking to us about this role that you've assumed in 2023 and the specifics of it, and then we'll go on from there. Tell us about this director's role that you have.
Absolutely. So I am the Director of Educator Leadership Development for ASCD. And I'm so excited about that opportunity because for most folks, especially who are in my season of their education career, are likely familiar in some way with ASCD. Our organization is a membership organization, and at one time we had 175,000 members. And so we are, by my personal and professional standard, the gold standard for professional learning. And our vision as an organization is to serve as your research-based and evidence-based partner in professional development for all educators. And the goal is to be able to do that over the course of your career. So my role specifically in an organization as large as ours is a narrowed lens to not just teachers and other career professionals, but my goal and focus is on leadership. So all things leadership, my expectations, my focus is on developing programs, products, and services that support the needs of a variety of capacities of leaders. So everybody from teacher leaders all the way through the superintendency. But that's punctuated specifically, particularly with this season of change for school and building principals. So that's where our focus is right now.
So, some of the amazing work that it looks like you do is all about leadership development. But let's talk a little bit before that, before they get to maybe your work. What should school districts look for, in your opinion, when they're looking for educational leaders?
Well, I think there are a couple of really key things.
Okay.
I think the first thing is school districts have got to do a better job of assessing whether or not leaders have a full understanding of the work.
Okay.
The work is complex in ways that if you're looking in from an outside window, you may not have a really good sense. You're thinking you can march down hallways. If you're in elementary school, maybe blow your whistle and get everybody's attention. But the complexities of managing the politics of a school, the community, all of the folks that you report to, from the school board to your managing directors to other central office leadership, it becomes a very, very challenging role at times. And while it is certainly edifying, it is multi-layered and multifaceted. So I think in order to pick principles, you have to understand whether or not you have the capacity to manage all of those pieces, because they are going to be happening concurrently, whether you love it or whether you don't. I also think that it's important for school districts to hone in on folks who are relationship oriented, who are collaborators. I think the days of management are not foregone, but they are only a slither of the work that we do. While it may take up probably 80% of your time, but it is certainly not the focus. What school leaders have to be able to do effectively is to have a collaborative spirit. I think the third thing, if I were looking for a building level principle, in addition to having a full awareness of the complexities and the layers of the work, understanding how to lead and collaborate with others and be a fantastic relationship builder. But you really need someone who understands the challenges of getting students to master learning, because that's the only way to foster your skills as an instructional leader, is when you know what it takes for students to learn. We can no longer look through the lens of just sitting and getting an observation done and then checking it off, and the kids were fine in the classroom and the teachers seemed to be doing teacher moves. We can see from our data and our research that that is not enough. So we need to make certain that our instructional leaders understand instruction with a greater depth than they've ever had to before.
Wow, what amazing insight. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So let's ask this question. Let's say you had the opportunity to meet a brand new administrator and you're coaching them. What are some of the things that you would know? Maybe a brand new principal, maybe even somebody that has matriculated to the central office. What are some things that you would tell them?
Well, I could tell them a lot of different things. But one of the first things I think for me, I mean, I love the work so much and I love our industry so much because it is essential to humanity, right? We can't abandon this work. The world is counting on us. So the first thing I would assess is if they are new, their hunger to be here. And if you are in it for the long haul, I am happy to champion you and cheer you on. So what I want to be able to pick apart is, what is your why, right? So why are you doing this? And certainly if we establish, and I think it's fair to say, because educators have so long been shy and humble about the fact that they themselves have families to take care of. So if we establish the fact you have a family to take care of, you certainly want to make certain that you're working in an industry you love. But why lead? Because I am one who is quick to tell everybody when it comes to work, we have what, 16,000 school districts across this country.
Mhm.
I mean, you can work in any of them, but you don't have to lead in any, right?
Uh-huh.
So leadership is a specific calling to me because so many people are counting on you. So what I want to know is, in a vast industry with many opportunities and many off ramps in education, why lead? That's the first thing that I would be coaching them through, is your why. And then once I have a better sense of your why, what I want to know from them is, what tools do they believe they have to manage some of these complexities. And so we would talk through some of those things, some of the barriers they've already encountered, whether that's parent communication, whether it's the inundation and overwhelmedness of inboxes that are over full, right? Whether it is managing your own wellness and well-being and trying to find balance, whether it's dealing with, to be honest, just like we have recalcitrant students, we have recalcitrant adults and teachers who have their foot on the brake instead of on the gas, right? So what are the barriers you've encountered thus far? And then the third part of that is, once we've talked a little bit about your why, making certain that you really are grounded and feel like you're a good fit for the work. We've talked about the tools that you feel like you bring to the work. And now we've talked about the barriers. Let's talk through some strategies. Let's talk through some solutions for how we can begin to make progress. And I think leaders have to measure themselves against progress, because there is no final destination, right? I mean, students are ever changing. The dynamics of your building is ever changing. You will likely never reach 100% buy-in in anything. I think sometimes buy-in is overrated in the idea that you're going to get everybody to agree with you. It's not going to happen. So we're going to talk about some realistic strategies for how you move and advance your vision forward.
And so key in all of that is, I think too, is creating those effective partnerships. And so someone like yourself that's walked the walk and talked the talk and understands it is ideal for our new and upcoming leaders. So all of us need to find, even a veteran like me, every once in a while, you just need to be able to talk shop and
that's right.
Get some folks to do better. That's right. So you've done a lot of transformative work in your career. I read up on that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. How do we help schools, particularly post-COVID? That's a different kind of work. How do we help school districts get better, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's a great question that is probably an answer that none of us has in full, right?
That's
but
right.
I think what we start with is cultural awareness. And the reason I say that is because everyone wants to start throwing instructional strategies at schools and just figuring, if you package something up or you buy something that sounds great, kids are going to learn reading now because they've missed 3 years of reading, or kids are going to get better at math because we used said brand product. I think it's about really understanding the culture. And when I say that, I think sometimes our minds immediately race to minorities. But there's a culture and a pulse of every division, whether it's a minority division or whether it's not a minority division. And I think you have to begin to understand the culture of your community and what your community needs are and the resources they have. There are some high achieving communities out here whose students are now also suffering post-pandemic because of some of the gaps instructionally. But some of those well-resourced communities have folks that you can tap into that you just may not have touched yet, who can help move that needle pretty easily. Where some of our schools that were suffering prior to the pandemic, of course, their needs have basically grown exponentially in the post-pandemic era. So when I'm thinking about how we help schools manage that, it really starts with understanding the community that you're serving, understanding the culture in these schools that you're working in, and then figuring out the best way to galvanize the resources from your existing team of people. Teachers don't love it a whole lot when you start buying things that you asked them to then put in place that they had no voice in. So by galvanizing the team of existing folks, getting their voice, getting their insight on the tools they feel they need to make it work, I think is a first or second step. I think the other thing we have to do in the post-pandemic era, I think, is be realistic, right? I think states standardized test scores and high stakes testing is pushing everybody to the brink of, we have to do this urgently. We are the ones who set these arbitrary, as in my opinion, arbitrary standards for achievement. We are the ones who decide when kids should know this and how much they should know by then. We can unset those, not lower the bar, but we can reimagine what those standards and those metrics can look like in a post-pandemic era, so that we are focused more on progress versus goal achievement. And then when you give schools something to strive towards that they feel like is attainable, you're going to get them to be more motivated. So I think it starts by going ahead and making certain that we're being realistic about what we expect. If you have teachers believing they have to get 100% of kids to pass XYZ in 9 months when they're 2 years behind, that gives teachers the idea that they're defeated from the beginning and they lack the motivation to really apply their best selves to the work. So setting up some realistic goals and expectations for teachers. And then the last piece of that is it really is all hands on deck and getting everyone involved in helping. And when I say everyone, I think for too long, we have relied exclusively on school professionals, but we really need a community to help support us in this effort.
That's beautiful. In my previous district, just started a new job in July of 22, but my previous district, we used to call it all in for learning.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about conceptually having everyone involved and on deck. And like you said, in today's time with the myriad of challenges that we have in public schools, we certainly need an all hands on deck approach. And so thank you for that insight. So say it again.
I want to just punctuate in partnership, because what we don't need in education is more adversaries, right? We don't need, we're on the same team. Parents, schools, divisions, one thing in common, regardless of our backgrounds, we all want our children to achieve. So we have to start treating each other like we're on the same team and not adversaries.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, there you go. That's that amazing insight. I had heard about you. So, Mrs. Knight, let's talk a little bit about the future of education and where you see it going. You know, what are schools going to look like? What is leadership going to look like maybe in 5 or 10 years from now, in your opinion?
Oh my goodness, Dr. Wright, this is my favorite question, because when I talk shop, the future of education just excites me to no end, because prior to the pandemic, of course, we were all working in overdrive, trying to ensure excellence for students in terms of their scholastic and social experience in our buildings. But something was always missing, right? We were still doing things that were more aligned with a primitive way of schooling. Right. And so I am so excited about a bold new future in education where we collect the things that have worked well and have served us well, because many of us are products of these public education systems. So something went right. But I also think we have got to begin to embrace the new technologies and begin to leverage those to reimagine schools and reimagine learning. And what that looks like to me is not the future of schools being students stuck with their head in a phone or a Chromebook all day long, but it is about utilizing technology so that they can dig deeper and master learning at a whole new level, thinking of things like ChatGPT that's out, and instead of running from it because, oh my gosh, every student is going to use it to cheat. No, we teach children how to use technology like we do anything else, with boundaries, right? And so you teach them to embrace it and how to capitalize on it so that they can see multiple perspectives in almost an instant. And then they create and shape their own perspective about something. So it will allow them to break through the depths of understanding in ways that many times our teachers, even with all the knowledge they have, are sometimes more limited in. Think about some of our teachers and their schooling experience, especially elementary folks. And I feel qualified to say this because I used to be an elementary teacher and an elementary principal at one point. But by and large, many of us are generalists. I was able to go not a mile deep, but more or less wide, right? So a mile wide instead of really an inch deep, because I had to be a master of everything, a jack of all trades. So imagine having a technology partner on my shoulder to do that work as an elementary teacher, because the scientists will know this better than I really am. I'm not a scientist. I didn't study science. But if I partner with some of our AI bots or virtual learning experiences where we are bringing in some of the best there is in our classrooms as a routine part of student learning experiences, I expect that will become the norm in the future. No longer are these once a year days for career fairs, but we want to be able to engage. This is about partnerships, right? So it's not just begging partners for money, but we need to leverage partner expertise. These are field experts who are doing jobs that our children will one day want to model. We need them in our classrooms, speaking to our children, doing virtual lab experiments with kids and having real life scientists weigh in on that and looking at our students' research. That is a fantastic thing for our children to experience. I think we need to normalize field trips, not as extracurricular excursions, but a part of the authentic learning experience for students. And they need to get built into our school and division budgets, so that funding is not a barrier to students having access to real world opportunities to connect their learning from theory to practice. Excuse me. And then I think the third thing that excites me about a bold new future is really when we begin to think about student choice and student voice. I think our new facilities have to be able to reflect the fact that students need an opportunity to be able to demonstrate responsibility and autonomy in learning. How do I choose the things that are more associated to my vision and my hope for my future than just learning any and everything, right? We set some core competencies across every state, and whether you're using Common Core or here in Virginia, where we don't use Common Core, but we all have core competencies, and all students should expect to learn those. But at some point, those paths need to be more differentiated for students, and let students begin to choose their learning vehicle and be able to move about the cabin, so to speak, especially as they are in some of our secondary spaces, which is my pride and joy, is secondary learning and adolescents and high schoolers. So I see the future being rich and full if we learn to get excited about it, not fearful of technology, but figuring out how we use it, and not be afraid of children, and giving them the opportunity to demonstrate choice and have voice at their own table. I think it's a huge opportunity to grow the new version of schools. And then, of course, we could always talk about beautiful campuses and things that make kids and teachers feel like, I want to be here, right? So I think, but those are some of the ones that I think are big for me.
And not once did I hear you talk about running away from challenges in the future. Not once in all of that. Yet I heard you say that we need to be embracing and exploring and those kinds of things, which makes the future exciting. I need to bottle up. I'm going to make sure that people hear that, the excitement about the future, because we don't hear that often, and we certainly need to be excited about the possibilities and the opportunities and things of that nature. So thank you for that insight.
Of course.
So let's shift gears just a little bit. You have had a great deal of success. Like I said, I've read your resume and had a couple conversations, so I've learned about the amazing work that you've done. So, what do you attribute your success in your career to, and what led you also to make that jump to ASCD?
Yeah. Now, do you want the real answer, or do you want the correct answer?
I think my audience is used to us keeping it real, for sure.
Well, I love keeping it real, so I'm going to share my answer about that shortly. But what led to my success is really, I'll say a couple of things. I've had some great leaders along the way that have inspired me, that have nurtured me, that have given me confidence, that have affirmed me in my journey to lead. Becoming a principal was more serendipitous, to be honest, than anything. It was not necessarily what I was on track to do. I used to be a professional development specialist in Washington, D.C., where I trained a workforce of maybe 6,000 to 8,000, everybody from teachers to central office administrators. And having that platform meant I trained in every place from Washington Post to the school division, central office, nighttime, daytime. It gave me an opportunity to travel and learn best practices from across the country. So I was able to source what was working everywhere and bring that learning to my district in the form of professional learning. We did some wonderful things like creating the teaching and learning framework, the development of mastery teachers, just really exciting stuff that was happening. But that platform gave me a lot of visibility that was kind of an unintended but very positive consequence. So when they were looking for new principals, I did not apply. People started reaching out to the superintendent. I wasn't thinking about it, to be honest. I was enjoying my work. And people reached out to the superintendent at that time and said, "You've got to get this person to lead one of our schools." And so they called me and asked me to apply. And that started my leadership journey. So that's how I became principal, my first principal role. And it just kept moving from there. I started in elementary, and then I moved to secondary, where I said I have the greatest level of fondness for middle school peeps. Shout out to you. Love me some middle school folks. And so yeah, that's where I got my groove, and that's where I stayed. And I principaled, I think, 2 or 3 middle school buildings. I can't remember at this point, but after that, I decided, of course, I moved to the district level and district level administration. I've been everything from a professional development specialist, instructional specialist, director of curriculum and instruction, all things education, right? So it's just my thing, my jam. But I ended up deciding to shift gears for a number of reasons. One, this podcast is wonderful because it allows us to be honest about some of the challenges that we're having in the industry. Sure. But I had reached my capacity, right? So in my mind, and I think evidenced by my scores, the support of my community, and some other things, I felt like I had taken my school community as far as I had the capacity to keep going. And some of the other challenges in the industry begged to me that this season of my life needed to end at that moment so that I could start a new chapter thinking on a broader scale. So I decided to make the shift. In addition to that, for personal reasons, I needed more, just to be honest, just time with my own family. I was giving so much of myself personally and professionally to the work that is important, but it's very difficult to work on behalf of other people's children and not be present for your own. So lots of evening school board meetings and all kinds of other things that were certainly just a part of the work. I had to make a personal decision at that point. And so for me, it was about, how do I still keep a pulse on what I love to do, use my skill set to continue to grow and develop people, because we need industry folks, right? And how do I do it in the way that allows me to continue to rise and to the challenges of motherhood? And to be honest, I know this probably doesn't get said very often, but I love my family. So I want to be a great wife. I want to be a great mom. It really just comes down to that. And I don't want to, and I tell my husband all the time, I laugh, I'm like, hey, I don't want to be sitting in a rocking chair 20 years from now and we don't know each other because I'm always in a school board meeting, right? So that was important for me, to take control of my own personal path professionally. So all of those things. And so ASCD gave me the opportunity to do that. It's like I shared with you, a long-standing, well-respected organization. I had been a member of ASCD pretty much my entire career. I've relied heavily on them for researched and evidence-based resources that I use to develop myself personally. Publications are some of the cheapest form of PD, and I relied exclusively on ASCD, almost exclusively, to do that. And so I had a lot of respect for the organization. And when I saw the opportunity, I thought, I'm going to give it a shot because I feel more than capable. And I'm so grateful that they took a chance on me. And here I am.
And you know, the important thing that I heard you say, that leaders, aspiring leaders, veteran leaders like myself need to understand, is you got to understand when it's time to do something different. And that's not something that we need to apologize for, even that we need to explain. You know, sometimes we just understand that the work and the season and what's best for me requires me to look at doing something different. And now I won't tell my folks where I'm working now. That doesn't mean that Dr. Wright's getting ready to do anything, but but that's so important. I think sometimes people, for whatever reason, may stay too long, or they may see signs of the need to do something different, and sometimes not take those steps to do so. So I think that again is amazing insight, and what a wonderful opportunity it has been to get to know you better. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with my audience at this point?
Well, certainly we can always come back and talk shop, right? Because there's so many things. The field is so vast. But I know at one point we wanted to talk a little bit about leaders who are thinking about the work.
There you go. Right.
Right. So a couple of things. When I think, if I were to leave anything with your audience of aspiring leaders,
okay,
I will say it that way. The first thing for me is know that I am excited that you have a heart for the work. Okay. We need you, right? We need people who aspire to be in the pipeline to lead the next generation of children, right? That's important. So know that I am here to champion that effort, because you could do anything in the world. So choosing our industry is very personal to me. So that's the first thing, is thank you. The second thing is, as you're making decisions as an aspiring leader to do this work, it is so important, as I shared before, really have a good understanding of what it looks like, because it is multifaceted, and understand why you want to do it, because you're going to need that to sustain you during some of these challenging times. And in today's state of the industry, those challenging times sometimes come more frequently than we hope. And sometimes it's hard to get in front of it, no matter how organized and how successful or effective you feel. It's sometimes difficult because you can't hit the stop button, right? So you need to be able to rest on your why. So you got to know that, because it's going to push you through. The third thing I would leave with your audience of aspiring leaders is leading through the lens of collaboration. You've got to be able to build great teams. I've always been able to be successful at building a culture of great teams, because you can build capacity that way. So on those days when you need your own mental health break, or you need to be somewhere else and do something else, you're not tethered to the building, because you have built capacity within your team, and not just to be able to use the walkie, but to make good judgment calls in your absence. Fourth thing I would say, and I have only 5, fourth thing I would say is never forget to build joy, right? We have a hard job to do, but it is so incredibly edifying. And if you can do it with a smile, do it with laughter in your heart, make other people laugh and feel visible, like everybody knows that I see them. Everybody. I walk the halls, they hear me before I came, right? So everybody knew that I saw them. That was important to me. Nobody was invisible. Every child has a name. Every staff member has a name. Make certain that they know you know it. And then the last thing I would say is what we just talked about, Dr. Wright.
Yes.
Is know your threshold. Right. It is absolutely perfectly okay to say, hey, I think I'm getting there. Don't leave the industry. Please don't. But know that there's so many other off ramps that you can explore to take your expertise to continue to make a difference. But do not die on the job or retire on the job, because you do is such a disservice to our school communities that way. We compromise experiences for children that they will never get that year back for, if we lose steam and their year is not as successful as it could be. So you got to know when your threshold gets there and respond to the call, right? That's important. And you might get there sooner than you think, because it is tough work. But if you strategize effectively and partner effectively, you can build some endurance for the long haul. But if you can't, let's talk through some options so that you continue to support kids in the best way, and teachers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Your insight is absolutely amazing. I am, as my audience is, I'm sure, absolutely thankful that you took the opportunity to come on this show. And as you said, this platform is open. We're certainly going to be getting you back to have further discussions, but certainly, like I said, I really do appreciate you and your willingness to be a part of this show. We just kind of met over a quick conversation, I think, and we got you here. So thank you for that. If you'll hold on with me for just 1 minute, we'll come back and close out the show.
Sounds good.
My guest next week on the Wright Experience will be a superintendent who is currently serving in the state of Michigan, Mr. Rod Broadnax, and we'll be having him on here on the Wright Experience. And that'll be next week, next Thursday, March 23rd, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Time. And at this time, I want to say to the Wright Experience audience, thank you. Keep spreading the word and make sure that you're continuing to click like and comment on the content that we have for you. And most importantly, help me by clicking that subscribe button on YouTube. Mrs. Knight, thank you once again. Just an amazing person and work that you're doing. Continue to keep serving children. And for me, I certainly learned a lot tonight, and we'll continue to reach out to you to learn even more. And I just thank you for the amazing work that you continue to do on behalf of students and those that serve them all across the United States.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and you enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll reconnect soon.
Absolutely. And to the Wright Experience audience, thank you and good evening.